And he's the one that came up with this idea, and I think that they already kind of interviewed Mauricio Pais, and I think that there's something that we need to try. We need to kind of keep this going. There's a lot of you veterans out here that probably did crazy stuff in the military. We need to kind of hear about it, and the only way we're going to do that is if he let us interview you. I don't know if we want to do it in front of people like I volunteer to do, but Monk was after me about getting interviewed, and I keep putting Monk off, and then finally he came up with the idea and said, okay, we'll interview in front of everybody. So I'll give it my best shot. See, and I hope that I don't get too long-winded and bore everybody to death. But Kevin Roban over here is going to probably ask me some questions, and I'll try to answer them. Give short answers or long answers, I don't know, but I'll give it my best shot.
Just start off with where you were born and a little bit about your upbringing, if you'd like.
Okay. I was born in Puerto Luna, and my mother was Petra Ortega, and my dad was Isidro Chavez. My dad was a World War II veteran, and my uncle Lalo too was a World War II veteran. And my mother's brothers were also World War II veterans. So growing up in Puerto Luna and going to school in Puerto Luna, when we started going to school there in Puerto Luna, before we even started a class, we had to say the Pledge of Allegiance, and also we had to sing this song. And I still remember that song, and one of the words in that song is, "Onward Christian soldiers going to war." It sounded kind of a Protestant song, but it didn't sound Catholic, but still it was a song that we all sung. So there was a lot of patriotism back then in our school systems. I hope there's still patriotism in our school systems, but back then there was a lot of patriotism in school. So I kind of grew up, around veterans, and that was something that I kind of look forward to, of someday becoming a soldier. Yeah.
Did you volunteer or did you get drafted?
No. Well, back in the kind of in the middle of Vietnam, the draft was still on, and one of the realities at that time is in '67 when I graduated from high school, we knew that whenever we were to graduate, we were going to all go, either on our own, or they're going to come and drag us into the military, And so a lot of us from Santa Rosa, we volunteered. I volunteered to go. I figured, I was not smart enough to go to college. I was not married, and I didn't have a critical job, so I figured, if I don't go, the draft board is going to probably drag me over there, so I volunteered, and I ended up going to basic training in Fort Bliss, Texas, not too far from here, so, and what is the next question?
What kind of training did you experience?
I took my basic training in Fort Bliss, Texas, and I remember the first days I got there, I remember they took us in a train from Albuquerque. They took us, and we ended up in Fort Bliss at night, I remember. And there was a guy there from Alaska. And I always remember that poor fellow, I wonder what it was like for him to train in Fort Bliss, Texas, coming from Alaska. I don't know if anybody went to training there in Fort Bliss. It's hot. It's a desert. And but that's where we took our basic training. And I remember that the drill sergeant, I remember he told us, we're all sitting there listening to him. And he said, all of you are going to go to Vietnam, and the guy probably next to you and the guy next to you is probably not going to come back. I remember he told us that, and that kind of opened my eyes up. I said, this is serious. This is very, very serious. So I did the best I could in that part of my training. One of the things that, like a lot of our soldiers, we spend a lot of time in the firing range. And I remember the first thing I had to master was zero or weapons. That was the first thing they tried to teach us right off the bat. Zero your weapons. Once you zero your weapons, and then you're going to hit anything. And I was able to walk out of there with an expert badge. That's the best you can do in the shooting range. Because I was an athlete, and like I was a lion in Santa Rosa. I played football and I ran track. In football, I did a lot of push-ups, so there was no big deal there. In track, I was so happy that I did track in Santa Rosa High School because I was able to run. We had one of our this PT test that we had back then was a hard one. We had to do it all in boots, you know. But one part of that PT test was a 4-mile run, and I remember I beat everybody in the 4-mile run, and I gave that to the credit to the Santa Rosa High School Lions. You know, the track that I used to run the 880 in track, so I remember I was able to beat everybody on that run. But from there they took me to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and I took communications. I ended up training in communications, and that was an eye opener too for me. There's so much. The military does. If the military can't communicate, you're dead on the water. That's one thing that I learned from that school. If the radio's not working and the commanders are not talking and the wire is not connected to those phones, the unit is dead on the water. Yeah. After I graduated from communication school, I thought I was going to go to Vietnam, and I ended up going to Germany. My mother was so happy that I was going to Germany. You know, and when I was in Germany, we're in Frankfurt replacement station there in Germany. Some airborne guy came around looking for airborne volunteers. And me and this other guy named Naples, we volunteered. And we ended up in an airborne school. And I was crazy going through those airborne schools. I don't know how many airborne people we have in here, but you know, that's kind of crazy training. And we ended up with the 8th Infantry Division, right there in Mainz, Wiesbaden. Looking back on that period of my military, is that Europe at that time was in the middle of the Cold War. The biggest fear for Germany and all the European countries is the Russians coming through this place they call the Fulda Gap. All the NATO countries at that time were ready and waiting for those 1,000 tanks come down that gap, you know, into Frankfurt. And I remember that we did our jumping in that area. And I remember I jumped into this. We were flying over the snow, and I remember I said, "Oh my God, man, we're gonna land in snow." And when I hit the snow went up to my waist. And the wind was blowing about 15 miles an hour, I don't know, maybe even faster. And that parachute was dragging me. It was dragging me like a horse. I couldn't collapse the parachute because over here on the right side there's like a button that you can press and you can collapse one side of the parachute. My fingers are so frozen I couldn't do it. I couldn't push those buttons together. And this parachute was just dragging me. Everybody's getting dragged. I finally figured out how to do it. I just got the knuckle and I just pushed, and my parachute just kind of collapsed to one side. So we tried to grab everybody that was dragging through the snow. But you know, looking back, there was other countries also participating in exercise. There were the French, the British, all those different soldiers. They were young like me, no, but they had different uniforms. That kind of looked strange, no. But to us, we also look strange to them, you know. But that was a time in the middle of the Cold War. And then, what is it?
So the next one is, how did you become an officer in the National Guard?
Oh, okay.
You can back
before
up.
we get there.
Yeah.
Okay, when I was in Germany, the tent offenses took place in 1968. Where's the tent offenses? That was, I don't know, some of you Vietnam veterans were probably in the middle of that. But that was a terrible time for the NVA and for the VC and for us too. No. So there were so many casualties during that time that they loaded a bunch of us in Germany on buses, and they brought us back to this country. And then from here they took us back. They took us to Vietnam. And I remember I came home, and my mother seen me. Sorry. And right away she knew. I didn't tell nobody that I was going to Vietnam. But as soon as she seen me coming, she knew it. She started crying. My mother started crying, and then I stayed here a few days. And it is amazing, like in a few days, I'm in the middle of Vietnam, like 90-degree weather, 100% humidity. I came from bum holder where we were in snow up to my ankle, up to my waist, and then like a month later I'm over there in Vietnam, and this humid, smelly, everything we seen there was like destroyed, bomb craters everywhere. They got us in this bus, and I remember it had like wire, like chicken wire. I don't know what kind of wire it is. And I kept thinking to myself, I guess somebody's gonna try to throw a grenade in here, And so that was kind of my first experience in Vietnam, is going from one extreme weather to another. And that's usually what happens to us soldiers. We end up serving in the worst places in the world, the worst climate, the worst, the worst terrains. I don't know what it is about wars. It happens in those places, no? Yeah.
Yeah, so the next one is how'd you become an officer in the National Guard? Unless you'd like to, I mean, it's at your pace. So.
Okay, after my 2 years in Vietnam, I came home and I finished my tour in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And then I got out, and I remember I was kind of wanting to stay in the Army. And I called my dad, and my dad wasn't man of few words, no. And so I asked my dad, he said, I'm thinking of staying in the Army. And my dad talked me out of it. He said, no, vente para la casa. Come home. So I came home, no. And so and that's when I met Peggy, my wife. Good thing I did. So 50 years later, and a bunch of kids and grandkids, that was kind of the best decision I ever made coming home. And I ended up going to Eastern. Peggy and I went to Eastern. When Peggy graduated from high school, we both of us ended up at Eastern. And we got married at Eastern, and had David, my son over there. He's really from Portales. Anyway, when I graduated from Eastern, I joined the Guard. And the first drill in Tuncari, they were looking for candidates to go to OCS. And there was about 4 of us there that volunteered. I was always volunteering for something, I don't know why. But anyway, I volunteered, and they sent me to OCS, Officer Cadet School. And for you younger people that are here, that are still going to high school and want to go to college, this is the way you do it, to become an officer in the military. First of all, you get a degree, And if you have and if you're a good soldier, and then they'll send you OCS or ROTC. There's 3 ways you can get a commission. You get it through West Point, you get it OCS or ROTC. Those are the 3 ways to get a commission for the military. Anyway, I go through OCS, and I get assigned to, my first unit was there in Portales. At that time, the New Mexico National Guard was Air Defense Artillery. Oh man, the Ukraine, man, that's the problem they're having now with air defense. No. But back then, the National Guard was all air defense artillery. So I became an air defense artillery officer. I got bounced around all over the state, as an officer. And but that training doesn't stop at OCS. I end up having to go to the officer basic course in Fort Bliss. And then from that officer basic course, I end up going to the officer advanced course. And then when you become like a major, and then you start applying for the command and general staff. Now, every officer in the Army has to go to command and general staff. Everybody has to go through, all the West Pointers, the ROTC, the OCS. And as a major, they give you the opportunity to go to the command and general staff. And that takes a little while. It took me about 2 years to get out of there. But once I graduated from command and general staff, and then I can get promoted to lieutenant colonel. And that's how it happens in the military. You go through all this training, and then you go through all these assignments. And then one day, like in 9/11, all of us old Vietnam veterans, like Victor here and some of the other Vietnam veterans, they're happy we were there, because we already seen war before. We already seen that this something is coming. This 9/11 thing is serious. I got promoted to a lieutenant colonel. They gave me a battalion. And everything that I had done from the time I joined the military, all the assignments, all the schools that I went to, got me ready for that one moment. That one moment when I became the battalion commander. Now my mission is to get soldiers ready to go to Iraq and to Afghanistan. Battalions are made up of companies. My battalion was made up of transportation companies and LP companies. We already had one transportation company already there, the 720th. I don't know if there's anybody here from the 720th. But those were the first guys that went there. All the hard lessons that these guys learned, all their mistakes, everything that they learned, we were getting it. I was getting all that information from the 720th, and we were trying to get the other two transportation companies ready to go, the 1115th and 1116th. He can probably vouch for me. I didn't realize how much action a transportation company gets. In a war zone, the first thing you want to do, the first thing the enemy wants to do, he wants to kill the transportation companies. Because that's where everything is at. There's where the bullets are at, there's where the beans are at, there's where all the troops are getting transported. Everything is going through a transportation company. There's only two guys in that truck. The driver and the shotgun. There's only two drivers. If that truck gets hit, nobody's gonna stop. You're on your own, no. You're on their own. We started getting troops back that were wounded. That's one time in my life in the military that I appreciated the 88 mics. When the 720s came back, remember you all had that get together there at Robertson? Yeah. And then we started sending those other transportation companies, the 115th and the 116th. One of those companies was the 1115th out of Taos. We sent a female, Captain Romero. She was a female captain. Yeah. I remember when we sent her, we had that, we had those yellow ribbons, those ceremonies, And I remember she had a little kid, she had a baby on her lap. And I said to myself, I hope that mother makes it back. No, because she has a baby, but they all made it back. The Taos unit. You know how many soldiers we had in Taos unit that are named Medinas? I remember seeing those soldiers named Medinas. You know that Medinas is the most sacred place in the Islamic world. I told those Medinas, you guys are not going to get shot. They're not going to do nothing to you. You guys have named Medinas. The other unit we sent was a unit out of Gallup. And the captain we sent right there was named the Captain Klaus. Those are all Navajos. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with the Navajo culture. The ultimate moment for a Native American is to be a warrior. I didn't have no problem with that unit getting all those soldiers ready to go. Those soldiers from Gallup. They're all Navajos. They're ready to go. We sent them off, and they all came back. There was another unit that we sent, was the MP company. Now the MP company, we gave that company a birth. When I took over the battalion, Kenny Montoya, my adjutant general, he said, we need to put together this MP company. And I look around and I'm the only one. Me and the Major Rivera. Major Rivera was the only MP officer I had in the battalion. I'm trying to figure out how to put together an MP company. He gave me a year to do it. And we did it within that year. We put this MP company together. Of all the units that we had to send to Vietnam, that's the one I worried the most. These are field MPs. These are the ones that they're like your infantry guys armed to the teeth. And I give the adjutant general Kenny Montoya a lot of credit for all the training that he pushed on us. He pushed a lot of training on us, and all the missions that we went to, that we went to in Iraq and Afghanistan, we only lost one soldier, one New Mexico National Guard soldier, Alan Westbrook out of Farmington. We got a bunch of them back wounded, but there's only one soldier that we got back that didn't come back. Compared to other states, there was a lot of casualties among the National Guard units. But New Mexico is probably one of the best trained soldiers that we sent to Iraq and Afghanistan. And I give this credit to my boss, Kenny Montoya. I give this credit to my staff, my first sergeants, my command sergeant majors. Those are the people that kind of makes things happen in the military. Like Victor over here, first sergeant, and the command sergeant major sitting back there. Those are the guys that put it together. We do all the talking, the officers, but those are the guys that kind of put it together, yeah. And that's, sorry if I talk too much.
How did the Veterans Administration help you?
Oh my God. This part is hard. I don't know how many people here had to fight the VA. I think that I came back from Vietnam, we started fighting the VA. The VA was not paying attention to us. They barely paid attention to the World War I and World War II and less to us. And so everybody that had to have a VA, that had to go before the VA has the stories about, the VA not paying attention to us. But we were lucky to have somebody like Karen Abita that represented Guadalupe County. I know that the way I end up having to go see her is that Martin Gonzalez, I don't know if he's here. Is he Martin is here? No? Well, Martin, he called me. See, Martin and I, we go back a long time. We share kind of the same aunt, so we grew up together, In the ball game, Martin told me, Martin, there's this lady over there in Vegas, she gave me the card, He can help you with the VA, So I found her, on that, right there next to the post office, no? Yeah, and so I was not too sure, I said, just try another one of those doors I'm gonna knock on and nobody's gonna help, no, but she did. She sat down with me and she kinda asked me a few questions and then she kinda helped me put this package together, you know? And then we got that ball rolling. We got that ball rolling. You know, that's one of the things that I think that our government sometimes don't take care of our soldiers. You know, we go and do all this crazy stuff. You know, we come back all spunked out. You know, and we try to readjust. You know, trying to deal with our emotions and our tempers and our addictions and everything else. No, and but I think the VA is coming around. I hope the Iraqi veterans and the Afghanistan veterans, I hope that they're getting their help, you know. And I think you're in positions where you can help more than you were before, no? Yeah. Yeah, I hope you can keep it up, you know. Keep it up, yeah. Mm.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What does Veterans Day mean to you and your fellow veterans?
Oh, I got a story to tell you. Sorry if I'm too long-winded. Well, let's go back to the 7/20th. One day we were going to a ball game in Tuncary, and I got a call. And they told me that one of our soldiers in the 7/20th had been wounded, and we had to let the family know. And I became the casualty officer for Charlie Gallegos. And I remember, I think the guy that called me was a Major Stevens. He said, well, you know, you need to send me something. Send me something about what happened to Charlie Gallegos. No, so they faxed this information, that what they call incident, like a typical military official form. It's a very to the point incident report. No, so I got it through the fax, and they were telling me go find that family before they get to them, because at that time the information coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan was so fast. You know, it was not like when we were in Vietnam. It took weeks for information to get home. No. But for this war, it was fast. So they told me, get to that family, tell them what happened before anybody else tells them. So I went to go look for Charlie Gallegos' wife, Kathy Gallegos, and she was not there. There was Charlie's boys, a son named Carlos Gallegos. He came out of the door, and I remember going up to him and I asked him, he must have been like a teenager, do you know your dad's social security number? And he had it memorized. He told me the social security number for Charlie. You know, and I right away I knew that this is the same Charlie we're talking about. No? And so, but Kathy wasn't there, so I said to myself, oh, this is going to be one of those moments, man. So I went and got the whole Peggy, and I told Peggy, man, you're going to have to help me with this one, man, because we're going to have to let her know that Charlie was wounded, and we don't know how bad it is. You know, but he was wounded pretty bad, no. I don't know if you were there when that happened. But anyway, he spent his recovery time in, I think in Germany, no. I think that's where they all go, no, Germany, no. Yeah, to Frankfurt? Yeah. Frankfurt, no. And then he came home on Veterans Day. On 03, 2003, no, 03, Veterans Day, 03, yeah. I remember the whole town was there. The whole town was there, I remember. And I remember we got Charlie on a fire truck and we took him all around town. You know, I felt so happy for these veterans, you know, because as Vietnam veterans, we came home in the middle of the night, and nobody was kind of welcome us home, you know, except for our families, no. But still, you know, the patriotism wasn't there back during the Vietnam War. We came home to a divided country. Some people were for the war. Some people were against the war. It was a lot of unrest. No, and but I know that the Iraqi veterans and the Afghanistan veterans, we made sure that we gave them those recognitions, make them feel welcome at home, because that's the start of the healing process of getting these veterans back into our society, back to their families, back to the workplace. No, and I think that Karen Beta has done a good job of doing that, of helping us veterans get back to be normal, not being normal, but normal. You know, and so, you know, and so they, and it's so sad now that I look across here and I don't see the World War II veterans no more. I see the Korean veterans. And we were talking back here, me and Marvin, about we should have recorded those guys, man. We should have interviewed those World War II, the World War I veterans and the World War II veterans. Somebody should have sat down with them and recorded them. You know, we need to kind of start doing this for whatever veterans are still here, like Manuel, the last of the Korean veterans, and you know, and kind of get their stories. No, because we all have a story. Yeah, he has a story. He has a story. You know, Chippy has a crazy story. You know, you know, and so Victor has another crazy story here. You know, but that's we need to do this. We need to do more of this, and so
That's it.
that's it. Yeah.